Yes, long-haired monkey. What kind of music do you play?
Death metal.
Hi, I'm Nikki Bathory, as far as you know. And today, I will be going through and ranking every Cannibal Corpse studio album as of May 2026. A band that needs no introduction, Cannibal Corpse have released 16 studio albums, which I will be ranking in my handy-dandy tier list. As I'm sure you've already noticed, there are no D or F tiers on this tier list because, lukewarm take incoming, Cannibal Corpse, in my opinion, has not released an album below solid, or C tier, thus far in their career. I'll be going through Cannibal Corpse's discography from their first to their most recent studio albums and ranking them accordingly from triple S tier to C tier. Sound good? Wonderful. Let's start from the beginning. Eaten Back to Life is Cannibal Corpse's debut studio album, released on August 17th, 1990, through Metal Blade Records, like everyone from here on out. This album was produced by the legendary Scott Burns, and the artwork was done by Vince Locke, who would go on to do artwork for every Cannibal Corpse album onward. It's good. I like it. Really good. That's it. The instruments are very grounded in the thrashier side of death metal, wearing its late 80s death thrash influences right on its sleeves. The vocals are very gruff and guttural at points, with some collaboration from Deicide's Glenn Benton on songs like Mangled and A Skullful of Maggots. It's nowhere near as extreme and face-melting as the band would later get, but it's definitely not a bad start for what would become a core album in early death metal, and death metal as a genre. It's a staple, and a classic for good reason. Notable tracks include Scattered Remains, Splattered Brains, Mangled, A Skullful of Maggots, Bloody Chunks, and Buried in the Backyard. I'm feeling a low A, high B personally. Just gonna preemptively... There we go. Butchered at Birth is Cannibal Corpse's sophomoric album, released just under a year after Eaten Back to Life on July 1st, 1991, and is arguably one of the band's most iconic and infamous works to date, and is my personal favorite album of theirs. Everything about it, the production, the mixing, the vocals, the guitars, the writing, the album artwork, it's a tremendous improvement over the previous album, again, in my opinion. Jack Owen, the band's founding guitarist, feels the album was the weakest of the Chris Barnes era, but once stated it, quote, showcases the band's greatest evolution between albums, unquote, and I'm inclined to agree. This album was banned in many countries for the album cover alone and lyrical content as well, which mostly consisted of just human butchery. And many record shops refused to sell to anyone under 18 or carry it all together. Filled with bangers, you got Meat Hook Sodomy, you got Gutted, Vomit the Soul, once again featuring Glenn Benton on guest vocals, Living Dissection, Covered with Sores, easy top of triple S tier. Some of their best work in raw, pure death metal. AKA the real Eaten Back to Life.
Bazinga!
Moving on to the third studio album and landmark of the death metal genre, Tomb of the Mutilated was released on September 22nd, 1992. Fantastic album. Duh. And also one of their most influential. This is the era where death metal was prominently featured in mainstream media and references. Cannibal Corpse did actually have a cameo in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective playing Hammer Smashed Face from this album. There are a lot more groovy guitar hooks and repetitive riffs, as well as more song structure and a much cleaner mix than Butchered at Birth, despite the subject matters of each song being more grotesque than the last somehow. There's a taped confession of Genesee River killer Arthur Shawcross sampled at the beginning of Addicted to Vaginal Skin. This album in general does have the vibe of it being written from the POV of a serial killer, not the first or the last time Cannibal Corpse would implement this. It's considered by many to be one of the greatest death metal albums of all time, and it's very understandable. Notable tracks, obviously, Hammer Smashed Face, I Crave Blood, Addicted to Vaginal Skin, Beyond the Cemetery, and others that I can't name here. To the tippy top of S tier for you. Released on April 12, 1994, Cannibal Corpse's fourth studio album and the final to feature Chris Barnes on vocals, thank God, is The Bleeding. It's one of the most commercially successful death metal albums of all time. There's a more accessible sound to it while still being brutal, of course. There's more conventional song structure and mixing, if you can call it that. Guitars, drums, and bass are getting a lot more technical, and while the mix is a lot cleaner, it doesn't detract from the authenticity and like the pure raw brutality of the overall sound. The vocals and lyrical content, while still grotesque and obscene, feel a lot more methodical and subdued on this album, with many of Barnes' lines decipherable to the naked ear. I personally feel Barnes being booted from the band after this album was impeccable timing, especially if you heard the shit he would eventually release with 6 Feet Under, as well as his version of Devoured by Vermin from the next album. Notable tracks include Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead, Baked with a Knife, and Force-Fed Broken Glass. I'm feeling a lukewarm A tier. There's a few classics on this album, but I don't really find myself revisiting it all that often. Vile is the 5th Cannibal Corpse studio album, released on May 21st, 1996, and the first to feature ex-Monstrosity vocalist George Corpse Grinder Fisher. It's the last album to be produced by Scott Burns, and Vile sort of goes for a less groove-oriented song structure and instead opts for a more traditional brutal death metal sound, which I feel works. The combination of a tumultuous production schedule and Chris Barnes being booted from the band kept this album from being excellent in my opinion. It's the first Cannibal Corpse album to feature on the Billboard Top 200, debuting at 151. This is a trend that would continue for many albums afterward. In my opinion, much better vocals from George Fisher, better chemistry with the band, and a decent production make for a solid album overall. Despite the then uncertain future for the band, they dove right in and it paid off. Notable tracks include Devoured by Vermin, Mummified and Barbed Wire, and Perverse Suffering. Similar caliber to Eaten Back to Life for me, right behind it in B tier. There's a really cute story that I would like to read about Corpse Grinder being super nervous for the band real quick. I remember that I lost control of my voice at first and could see the guys in the control room looking like, did we make the right choice? And I was nervous. I went into the bathroom and told myself, you know you can do this, so do the damn song. Rob had pushed so hard for me to join, like George is the only guy that can do this, and the first scream you hear is the first one he did when he walked back into the room, and I think that is freaking awesome. And just a really cute story about overcoming fear, and how even the lead singer of Cannibal Corpse gets really nervous at points. Moving on. Up next is Cannibal Corpse's 6th studio album, Gallery of Suicide, released on April 21st, 1998. This one's surprisingly overlooked and underrated by fans to me. It's the start of the George Fisher era of blending brutality and technicality with catchy grooves and a haunting atmosphere overall. The first Cannibal Corpse album to feature Pat O'Brien on guitar, and it shows. Holy the guy can shred. Lots of shreddy riffs and solos. Notable tracks include Stabbed in the Throat, Disposal of the Body, Every Bone Broken, Sentenced to Burn, and From Skin to Liquid. Very brutal, very cool. To the top of A tier. And perhaps their most underrated album in my opinion, Bloodthirst, was released on October 19th, 1999. It's the first album to not be recorded in Tampa, Florida. It's a continuation of Cannibal Corpse's new Fisher-era brutality and technicality. Fierce vocals and guitar riffs, shredding bass lines and guitar solos, and frequent tempo changes and complex blast beats all make for a great album. For me, it's the perfect embodiment of the new Fisher-era sound of Cannibal Corpse. Notable tracks: The Spine Splitter, Dead Human Collection, Pounded into Dust, Blowtorch Slaughter. This album has lots of hits and earns its rightful spot in S tier for me. We are now halfway through the tier list ranking. If you made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me yap about my favorite Cannibal Corpse albums. Moving on. Released on February 26, 2002, Cannibal Corpse released Gore Obsessed, and yeah, it's fine. This one doesn't really resonate with me as much as the previous albums, and that's fine. It's good. It's not a bad album by any means. Crystal clear production and mixing, chugging riffs, and Fisher is great, but not a whole lot that stands out from their more mid stuff in my opinion. The guitar mixing is chunky, heavy. Notable tracks include Hatchet to the Head, Pit of Zombies, Dormant Bodies Bursting, yet another lukewarm take Inbound. Speaking of lukewarm takes, yeah, this one's great. One of my all-time favorites from the band. The Wretched Spawn was released on February 24th, 2004, and I feel perfectly exemplifies the early Fisher era of Cannibal Corpse at its finest. From the shredding, unforgiving technicality of frantic disembowelment, to the haunting chugging of festering in the crypt and decency defied, all tied together with masterful ferocity of Fisher's vocals. This album has the full spectrum of the best of early Fisher-era Cannibal Corpse. This is the last album to feature the founding guitarist, Jack Owen. He wanted to go ride bikes and pretend to be Kerry King with Deicide. Notable tracks? All of them. Yeah, go listen to this album. If you're a fan of death metal and Cannibal Corpse, and you haven't listened to this, what the hell are you doing? S tier for me. Back-to-back glazing. Right on to their 10th studio album, Cannibal Corpse released Kill on March 21st, 2006. And yeah, like the previous album, it's essential listening in my opinion. It marks the return of Rob Barrett from Vile and the Bleeding, and was produced by Hate Eternal guitarist Eric Rutan. Wink. Yeah, he'll come up later. It peaked at 170 on the Billboard 200, and has some of their most iconic and greatest hits in their discography. From the very first second of this album, The Time to Kill Is Now, you know they're not f***ing around here. For me, it's the perfect blend of slow, chugging, demonic atmosphere with blisteringly fast, shreddy riffs, all wrapped up with George's menacing and dynamic vocals. Dynamic for death metal, anyway. Notable tracks, all of them. Go check out this album. Literally, every track is great. Stuff the mosh pit was made for. Easy triple S tier. How do you follow up an album like this? Evisceration Plague was released on February 3rd, 2009, and was produced again by Eric Rutan, and peaked at 66 on the Billboard 200. Obviously made with the continuation and possible development of the heaviness and the songwriting of Kill in the back of their minds. I think it's a solid album overall, even if it really doesn't exceed my expectations of a great album. It's the first album to have drummer Paul Mazurkiewicz play to a click track, and it kind of shows. There aren't really any wow-inspiring drums or really any instrumentals in here. I just chalk that up to him getting used to the click track. It's fine, I've been there. Notable tracks include Evisceration Plague, Priest of Sodom, Cauldron of Hate, and To Decompose. C tier. It's fine. Solid album. Torture is the 12th studio album from Cannibal Corpse, released on March 13th, 2012, produced, once again, by Eric Rutan. It peaked at number 38 on the Billboard 200 this time, and is the first album of theirs I personally ever bought as a kid. Explains a lot about me. It's the return to form of classic Cannibal Corpse, in my opinion, showcasing graphic violence on their cover and song lyrics. Paul Mazurkiewicz got more used to using a click track, and it shows. Got a lot more comfortable on the drums with that. Scourge of Iron is one of their best songs, in my opinion. It perfectly encapsulates the caveman, reptile brain, oonga boonga brutality that reminds me of how fun and silly being a death metal fan can be. Notable tracks include Demented Aggression, Followed Home Then Killed, Crucifier Revenge, and The Strangulation Chair. Side note, there is a crazy bass line in Strangulation Chair that just comes up out of nowhere, and it sounds so cool. I'll have to play it if I can. Easy top of A tier. Moving on to the 13th studio album in our ranking, we have A Skeletal Domain, released on September 16th, 2014, produced by legendary death metal producer Mark Lewis. The dark, threatening atmosphere works just as, if not better than, the shock value of some of their more risque albums, in my opinion. It's the highest charting Cannibal Corpse album on the Billboard 200, and peaked at number 32. Crazy. Kill or Become is far and away one of their catchiest songs to date, in my opinion, and I sang it to myself all the time around the house when it first released. I don't know. What do you guys think? Cannibal Corpse was trying to emulate a darker sound in terms of atmosphere, and hot take, it worked. Personally, not on par with something like Kill in that regard, but certainly nothing to stick your nose up to. Notable tracks include High Velocity Impact Spatter, A Skeletal Domain, The Murderer's Pact, and Ice Pick Lobotomy. Low A feels apt. A for apt. Haha. Up next, we have Cannibal Corpse's 14th studio album, Red Before Black, released on November 3rd, 2017. It's the final album to feature guitarist Pat O'Brien, and like the Metal Meltdown said, yeah, he just goes all out with the guitar riffs and the solos here. I'll leave a link to his video where he reviews every Cannibal Corpse album. He has a lot of great takes and was the inspiration for me making this video. It was produced once again by Eric Rutan shortly before he joined the band. From my perspective, it returns to classic Cannibal Corpse roots once again. Similar to Torture in terms of raw aggression and death thrash vibes, it often feels like it was written from the POV of a serial killer. You once again have such notable tracks as Only One Will Die, Red Before Black, Code of the Slashers, and Head Shoveled Off. Great blend of brutality and technicality. Easy top of A tier for me. Building off of that blend and creating a monster in the process, Cannibal Corpse released Violence Unimagined on April 26, 2021. Peaked at number 45 on the Billboard 200, and is the first to feature Eric Rutan on lead guitar as well as producer. And in turn, his take on what Cannibal Corpse lead guitar should sound like. And oh boy do we. Super technical, brutal, and gruesome in the old-fashioned, endearing Cannibal Corpse way we've all come to know and love. All the way down to the grotesque, uncensored album cover, as always, done by Vince Locke.
It's just an ordinary crabby. Oh my goodness!
Notable tracks include Murderous Rampage, Inhumane Harvest, Ritual Annihilation, Follow the Blood, Over Torture, and Cerements of the Flayed. Easy S tier for me, competing with the likes of Tomb of the Mutilated and Bloodthirst. Last but certainly not least, we have Chaos Horrific, released on September 22nd, 2023, and the latest Cannibal Corpse studio album as of this video. Once again, produced by Eric Rutan, who also did lead guitars for the album, this time peaking at 142 on the Billboard 200. This album was a foray and an exploration into new topics for the band's lyrical content, and in my opinion, it works. In addition to the zombies and the classic Torture stuff. A lot of the lyrical content leads itself well to the established Cannibal Corpse sound, in my opinion. Notable tracks include Overlords of Violence, Summoned for Sacrifice, the title track, Bloodblind, Vengeful Invasion, and Pitchfork Impalement. Most songs are unique in their own way in the ways that they blend brutality, technicality, and just overall greatness. Very much looking forward to their next release. As usual, we'll go A tier, just beneath the bleeding. That won't be controversial in any way, and I'm sure everyone will be sweet, understanding, and civil about opinions on the internet. That's it. That's my Cannibal Corpse studio album discography tier list. Holy smokes. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think about my tier list in the comments and what your favorite Cannibal Corpse studio albums are. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe and comment if you want to see more, all that good shit. Bye!